tainted by the same contaminants and the pancreatic cancers that killed his wife, Betty Jean, and two others in his household. Tim Hagee, manager of a local water utility, recalls how he used to assure people that the local public water was safe. That was before testing showed that it had some of the highest levels of the toxic compounds of any public water system in the U.S. You all made me out to be a liar, Hagee, general water and sewer manager in the eastern Pennsylvania town of Warminster, told Environmental Protection Agency officials last month. At community engagement sessions like the one in Horsham, residents and state, local, and military officials are demanding that the EPA act quickly and decisively to clean up local water systems testing positive for dangerous levels of the chemicals perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAs. The Trump administration called the contamination a potential public relations nightmare earlier this year after federal toxicology studies found that some of the compounds are more hazardous than previously acknowledged. PFASs have been in production since the 1940s, and there are about 3,500 different types. Dumped into water, the air, and the soil, some forms of the compounds are expected to remain intact for thousands of years. One public health expert dubbed them forever chemicals. EPA testing from 2013 to 2015 found significant amounts of PFAs in public water supplies in 33 U.S. states. Nebraska and Iowa are not among them. The finding helped move PFAs up as a national priority. So did scientific studies that firmed up the health risks. One looking at a compound once used in making Teflon found a probable link with kidney and testicular cancer, ulcerative colitis, thyroid disease, hypertension in pregnant women, and high cholesterol. Other recent studies point to immune problems in children, among other things. In 2016, the EPA set advisory limits without any direct enforcement for two kinds of PFAs, but newer versions are still being released. This year, federal toxicologists decided that even the EPA's 2016 advisory levels for the two versions were several times too high for safety. The EPA says it will prepare a national management plan for the compounds by the end of the year. But Peter Gravitt, director of the agency's Office of Groundwater and Drinking Water, said there is no deadline. Even as the Trump administration says it advocates for clean air and water, it is ceding more regulations to the states and putting a hold on some rules because they burden businesses. I know that you can't bring back 3 people that I lost, Betts, a retired airman, told the federal officials at the Horsham meeting, but they're gone. State lawmakers accuse the EPA of incompetency. It absolutely disgusts me that the federal government would put PR concerns ahead of public health concerns, Republican State Representative Todd Stevens said. After the meeting, Wohler questioned why it took so long to tell the public about the dangers of the compounds. Speaking at her home with her toddler nearby, she said, "Is this something that you know I have to worry? It's in her."
Thank you, Kendra. Well, a wildfire destroyed structures and forced evacuations Monday from the busiest area of Montana's Glacier National Park as officials in California prepared to reopen Yosemite National Park following a 2-week closure at the height of the summer season. Glacier's Sprague Creek campground was closed and evacuated a day after a fast-moving fire triggered the evacuation of dozens of guests from the historic Lake McDonald Lodge last Sunday night. Park officials said in a statement that structures on the north end of Lake McDonald were lost, but they did not provide details on the number and type. The fire grew to between 2 and 4 square miles by Monday afternoon. Crews were expected to stay on scene through the night to protect houses and other structures from the flames. Prosecutors in Florida charged Michael Drecka, a white man, with manslaughter Monday in the death of Marquise McLaughlin, an unarmed black man whose video-recorded shooting in a store parking lot has revived debate over Florida's Stand Your Ground law. News from the Manafort trial. Prosecutors on Monday rested their tax evasion and bank fraud case in the trial of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, closing 2 weeks of testimony. The trial of the longtime Washington operator now turns to Manafort's defense team. In New Mexico, state prosecutors said Monday that children who were found at a ramshackle New Mexico compound were trained to use firearms and learned other technical techniques as they prepared to get rid of teachers, law enforcement, and other institutions that were considered corrupt. Friday's theft of a 76-seat plane from the Seattle airport by a ground crew employee is prompting an industry-wide review of how to thwart such insider security threats, though it remains unclear what steps airlines might take. And lastly, prosecutors added another murder charge Monday against a California serial killing suspect, boosting the number of victims to 13 in the Golden State Killer case. Former police officer Joseph D'Angelo, 72, was charged with first-degree murder in the 1975 killing of community college teacher Claude Snelling, who was shot while stopping the kidnapping of his 16-year-old daughter in Visalia. Kendra.
Officials, teens strapped down but not abused. Virginia investigators say the treatment of young detained immigrants is legal. A state review into the treatment of immigrant teens held at a Virginia detention center confirmed that the facility uses restraint techniques that can include strapping children to chairs and placing mesh bags over their heads. But investigators concluded that the harsh treatments described by detainees at the Shenandoah Valley Juvenile Center did not meet the state's legal threshold of abuse or neglect, according to a copy of the findings issued Monday by the Virginia Department of Juvenile Justice and obtained by the Associated Press. The regulators did make recommendations to improve conditions inside the facility, including hiring more bilingual staff, expanding culturally relevant programming, and improving screening to provide care for detainees who have mental health problems. Democratic Governor Ralph Northam ordered the review in June, hours after the AP published first-person accounts by children as young as 14 who said they were handcuffed, shackled, and beaten at the facility. They also described being stripped of their clothes and locked in solitary confinement, sometimes strapped to chairs with bags over their head. The state investigators said they were unable to interview the immigrant teens who made sworn statements that they were severely abused. Those who made the initial complaints as part of the federal class action lawsuit filed in November 2017 were subsequently transferred to other facilities or deported. Northam issued a statement applauding his administration's quick and comprehensive examination. The legal advocacy group representing the Latino teens suing the facility called the state's review deeply flawed and said the investigators never asked to speak to their clients.
President Donald Trump on Monday signed a $716 billion defense policy bill named for John McCain, but included no mention in his remarks of the Republican senator who was battling brain cancer at home in Arizona. Trump and McCain are engaged in a feud that dates to Trump's 2016 presidential run. At campaign rallies, Trump regularly castigates McCain, without using his name, for casting a dramatic thumbs-down vote that doomed Trump's efforts last year to repeal the Affordable Care Act, which was enacted by President Barack Obama. Trump said there was no better place than right here at Fort Drum to celebrate passage of the defense bill, which boosts military pay by 2.6%, giving service members their largest increase in 9 years. The bill, formerly the John S. McCain National Defense Authorization Act, but referred to by Trump as simply the National Defense Authorization Act, will introduce thousands of new recruits to active duty, reserve, and National Guard units and replace aging tanks, planes, ships, and helicopters with more advanced and lethal technology, Trump said. Hopefully we'll be so strong we'll never have to use it, but if we ever did, nobody has a chance, he said. Trump and McCain have had a strained relationship for years. During his election campaign, Trump declared that McCain, who was a prisoner of war for more than 5 years in Vietnam, was not a war hero. And he has publicly and privately blamed McCain for submarining the Republican health care bill last year. In May, a West Wing aide dismissed McCain's negative opinion on Trump's CIA nominee during a closed-door meeting by saying of the senator that he's dying anyway. Trump did not apologize, but the aide was later fired. In a statement Monday, McCain expressed pride in the bill.
Okay, kids' election site hacking rankles Florida's officials. Child's play or signs of a serious security problem in one of the nation's swing states? That's the question confronting Florida election officials who are pushing back against reports that an 11-year-old hacked a replica of the state's election website. Multiple media outlets have reported that children at a hacking conference in Las Vegas were able to easily hack into a version of the website that reports election results to the public. An 11-year-old boy got into Florida's site within 10 minutes, while an 11-year-old girl did it in 15 minutes. Event organizers said students in Alabama are suddenly sent back to middle school. A dozen students in Alabama expecting to start high school are heading back to the 8th grade because of a mishap over grades. Superintendent Dr. Keith Stewart said the students were initially promoted to the 9th grade, but then sent back to middle school. He said the parents of students were informed Friday that the youth needed to complete some 8th grade classes. Stewart said that there was no evidence that they had passed some required classes. Maybe they were hacked. Utah man flies plane into house after assault arrest. A Utah man flew a small plane into his own house early Monday, just hours after he'd been arrested for assaulting his wife and posting bail. Authorities said the pilot, Dwayne Yode, died. His wife and child who were in the home survived despite the front part of the house being engulfed in flames. Investigators think Yode, 47, intentionally flew his employer's twin-engine Cessna 525 into his own
Last-minute appeals to try to stop his execution. 60-year-old Carrie Dean Moore will be put to death by the state of Nebraska at 10 a.m. Tuesday. Well, we don't know if it's already happened or not. Apparently it has. The execution will take place at the Nebraska State Penitentiary in Lincoln. It will be Nebraska's first execution in more than 20 years, the first since the state retained the death penalty over the legislature's wishes, and the first to be done by lethal injection. In 2016, the state's voters overwhelmingly supported reinstatement of the death penalty after the legislature had voted to abolish capital punishment in the state. The combination of drugs for Tuesday's execution has never been used to put a person to death, and 3 of the drugs, diazepam, fentanyl, and cysticericurium, something like that, have never been used as part of an execution protocol. The fourth drug, potassium chloride, has been challenged as having the potential to cause serious pain for the inmate. Moore has not fought the execution, but two drug companies have objected in federal court to any use of their drugs as part of the lethal injection protocol. One of those complaints has been rejected by two federal courts, and one is pending but won't be addressed in time to delay the execution. The ACLU asked the Nebraska Supreme Court on Monday to delay the execution until the courts ruled on a lawsuit filed on behalf of 8 death row inmates. Some reminders about today. Well, the weather forecast includes a high probability of showers and possibly a thunderstorm in Lincoln. A prison spokeswoman said appropriate attention is being given on Tuesday to the safety and security of the inmates, as well as staff and members of the public who will be at the Nebraska State Penitentiary. Whatever that means, I don't know. Moore has selected 4 people to witness his execution, including his brother David, spiritual advisor Bob Bryan, a niece, and a friend. 4 members of the media will also witness the death. 2 sons of victim Maynard Helgeland, Stephen Kenny, will be at the prison waiting for the execution. Petitions circulated by various Nebraska groups gathered more than 60,000 signatures asking Governor Pete Ricketts to stop the scheduled execution. A vigil is scheduled for 5 p.m. Tuesday on the north steps of the state capitol. In case of inclement weather, the event may be moved to the basement of the First Baptist Church, 1340 K Street. Nebraska Catholic bishops say they will spend silent time in prayer Tuesday morning for the victims of Carrie D. Moore, for Moore himself, and for an end to capital punishment in Nebraska.
Okay, ahead of 88th birthday, Buffett Cutting Bank will end visits with business students in Omaha. Warren Buffett will no longer host business student groups in Omaha. The decision, relayed by Buffett's office to college professors who brought thousands of their students to visit Buffett in Omaha over more than two decades, noted that he will turn 88 on August 30th. The note to professors says Buffett has decided to cut back on speaking engagements, especially commitments many months into the future. It was very hard for him to make the decision, Joanne Manhart, an executive assistant, told the World Herald on Monday. He enjoys doing that very much. But the schools must plan their visits far in advance, selecting students and making travel arrangements, Manhart said. It's really hard for him to plan things that far in advance, given the demands of his job as CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, Inc. Although the notice to the professors mentioned Buffett's age, Manhart said it wasn't a factor in the decision, nor was Buffett's health a factor, she said, although he has also trimmed some of his travel recently. The notice to the professors refers them to a new video archive of Berkshire's past meetings and says the students are still invited to attend the annual shareholders meetings. We were sad to get the news, says Rutgers University business professor John Longo, who had brought groups of students 3 times to the Buffett question and answer program and hoped to bring another group in 2019. I guess it had to end sometime, but I'm sad it's ending now. Last year, 4 groups, each with 20 students, made trips to Omaha and asked questions of Buffett for 2 hours in a meeting room at the Hilton Omaha. The students came from 10 different universities. The event is so popular that there was a waiting list of schools, including many from other countries. Buffett has said he hosted the graduate and undergraduate students still in their formative years to encourage proper conduct by future business leaders. Berkshire even profited from the program when Buffett acted on recommendation by visiting University of Tennessee students in 2003 that he buy Clayton Homes, a manufactured housing builder and lender. Students from one university added a day to their visit so they could volunteer with the Omaha Girls Inc. program. The college students, when they arrive in Omaha, visit Berkshire-owned businesses such as the Nebraska Furniture Mart, Borsheim's, and Oriental Trading Company, and talked with executives. The highlight of each visit is a Q&A session with Buffett. Buffett then treats the students to lunch. For years, they ate at Piccolo's restaurant until it closed in 2015, later at Anthony's Steakhouse, and last year at the Hilton. This year's decision follows earlier adjustments to the program related to Buffett's diminished hearing, a subject of his quips for the last 5 years. 2 years ago, to avoid misunderstandings, his office asked that questions from students with foreign accents be relayed by others. Last year, his office suggested that students write down their questions as a backup in case the acoustics of the meeting room made the questions hard to hear. Buffett has said he wants to be remembered as a teacher, and teachers use his annual letters to Berkshire shareholders as lessons on investing and business, as well as his views on life, ethics, philanthropy, and other subjects. His shareholder letters, compiled into at least one book, are standard on many business reading lists. As a college student, Buffett was inspired by Columbia University instructor Benjamin Graham and has attributed his success to Graham's investing concepts. Buffett's reverence for teachers shows up in an annual awards for Omaha Public Schools teachers named after his aunt, Alice Buffett, herself an OPS teacher. His daughter's middle name is Alice. In April, Buffett stepped down from the Kraft Heinz board of directors to decrease his travel commitments, although in June, Buffett made a trip to Kansas City to cut a ribbon on a new Geico service center. His public appearances surrounding the annual Berkshire shareholder meetings have diminished somewhat. In 2012, he discontinued his post-meeting press conferences because of private duties, and he recently dropped his day after ping pong exhibition and jewelry selling stint. This year, Buffett stopped his newspaper tossing competition at the CenturyLink Center, although he made his customary pre-meeting circuit around the convention hall to visit Berkshire Company booths, trailed by a crowd of shareholders snapping photos with their cell phones. Buffett is energetic when he appears in public, answering questions from shareholders and others during the meeting with a quick wit, a command of relevant information and analysis that observers regularly praise. He shows up promptly for 5 a.m. cable TV interviews, looking rested, well-groomed, and eager to answer whatever questions he gets. He makes a point of not knowing the questions in advance and invites tough inquiries. Buffett has promised shareholders that he would let them know about any serious health problems. He publicly announced the removal of a section of his colon that had a benign polyp in 2000 and his treatment for prostate cancer in 2012. Neither prevented him from working at Berkshire or, he said at the time, changed Berkshire's CEO succession plan. Longo, the Rutgers professor, said the students will consider attending the annual shareholders meeting but would miss the personal attention of the student Q&A session. Word of the decision has gotten to the students, Longo said. There is some disappointment that we couldn't go back, but I have nothing but fond memories of the experience, and I'm grateful for the trips we took. I hope he lives past 100.
Thanks, Kendra. Well, the title of this, the headline actually of this article is Mistrial Declared in Murder Case. A meeting between a Nebraska State Patrol investigator and prison staff witnesses prompted a mistrial Monday in a Tecumseh prison inmate's murder case after a week of work by the jury. Eric Ramos, 37, was on trial on allegations that he killed a fellow inmate, Michael Galindo, last year during an uprising at Tecumseh State Correctional Institution, sparked by staff's discovery of 29 gallons of alcohol in inmate cells. After staff retook control of the prison on March 2nd, 2017, they found Galindo and another inmate, Damon Fitzgerald, dead at the hands of inmates. In opening statements on August 6, Corey O'Brien said Galindo's attackers, he says there were at least 4, covered their faces and hands when they kicked, beat, and stabbed him. Ramos so far is the only one charged with murder based largely on prison staff piecing together surveillance video, which they say tracks back to him being one of Galindo's attackers. Johnson County Public Defender Timothy Nelson, one of Ramos's attorneys, in his opening statement took issue with the investigation, calling it sloppy, shoddy. He said there were even missing minutes of the original prison video. This week, Nelson said a representative of the Attorney General's office on Friday directed a state patrol investigator to go look for a piece of evidence. That's the missing minutes of the original prison video. So on Friday, they decided that they had discovered the missing 7 minutes, 8 days into the trial, Public Defender Nelson said. Nelson and co-counsel learned the investigator, a witness himself, had brought in 2 prison staffers, both major witnesses in the case, and they all talked about it. He called it a pretty clear violation of the judge's sequestration order, which bars witnesses from talking to one another about the case during trial. In his 3 years of practicing, Nelson said he'd never had a discovery still coming in from the state a week into the trial. Johnson County District Judge Vicki Johnson declared a mistrial Monday based on the meeting and sent the jury home. She scheduled a meeting in a week for the attorneys to discuss where the case goes from here. Asked to comment about the mistrial Monday, Suzanne Gage, a spokeswoman with the Attorney General's office, said only, "We intend to continue prosecution." Now, I mentioned, it said in the opening statements, Corey O'Brien said, I don't know who Corey O'Brien is, in case you're wondering. So, anyway, over to you, Kendra.
All righty. Okay, we're still in local. Still in local news. The Wabash Trace. 3 boys accused of vandalism during a weekly taco ride. They stretched fishing line across trail and threw rocks at riders, authorities said. 3 boys are facing charges in juvenile court in Pottawatomie County in connection with vandalism along the Wabash Trace Trail that could have left bicyclists severely injured. Last month, authorities said they began receiving reports of logs, rocks, tree branches, and fishing lines placed across the trail in Pottawatomie County. The dangerous vandalism occurred Thursday nights during the weekly bicycle ride from Council Bluffs to Mineola, known as the Taco Ride. Greg Losh, Vice President of Southwest Iowa Natural Trails, which manages the Wabash Trail, said that for the past 8 weeks, there have been incidences during the taco ride. 6 weeks ago, they put debris on the trail and a person wrecked, and they needed medical treatment. They would throw stones from an area and hit one person near the eye. Losh said the boys were apprehended near Meadowview Parkway on Thursday. He said traps and purposely placed debris are things most riders would never think of on a trail. I hope they are liable for any restitution to the injured parties, Losh said. The sheriff's office has been doing bike patrols for years on that trail, and we love that they are out there. The sheriff's, that is. The Pottawatomie County Sheriff's Office said that after these incidents were reported, deputies began riding the Wabash Trace in plain clothes, the sheriff's office said. Thursday, deputies were tipped that 3 suspicious people were on the trail, the sheriff's office said, and deputies found the 3 boys. Authorities learned that the boys had stretched fishing line across the trail, authorities said. The fishing line was found and removed before any injuries occurred. The 3 boys have been charged in juvenile court with third-degree harassment, the sheriff's office said.
Well,
misuse of tacos.
The Lincoln Diocese removes a priest. That's the headline of this article from the Lincoln Journal-Star. The Lincoln Diocese has removed another priest and accepted the resignation of yet another as it investigates the latest in a series of sexual misconduct and abuse allegations rattling the Catholic community. After pledging earlier this month to be more transparent, Bishop James Conley over the weekend announced he had replaced the Reverend Patrick Barvick, at least temporarily, as pastor at St. Mary's in Davie. Conley hinted at the reason for Barvick's removal, but didn't elaborate. I previously instructed Father Patrick Barvick that he was not to be alone with females. His behavior concerns me and the Diocesan Review Board, Conley wrote. I have asked him to temporarily step aside from his parish while I evaluate this situation. The statement didn't say whether the females were adults or minors, and a diocese spokesman declined to elaborate Monday. Barvick previously served at St. Joseph's and Cathedral of the risen Christ in Lincoln and at St. Michael's in Hastings. He also taught at Pius X High School, St. Cecilia's High School in Hastings, and at Bishop Newman High School in Wahoo, according to Newman's website. In Fillmore County, Stephen Tomlinson resigned as pastor at St. Stephen in Exeter and St. Wenceslas in Milligan after Conley met with the priest to discuss a past incident in the military that was a concern. Conley elaborated slightly that he preached in Exeter and Milligan over the weekend, according to a transcript provided to the Journal-Star. The bishop told parishioners Tomlinson had agreed to therapy after the unspecified incident and was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder after 30 years in the National Guard, where he was a chaplain. I want to make it clear that Father Tomlinson has not been accused of any type of abuse or crime or anything involving a minor or a parishioner, Conley said, according to the transcript. The news about Barvik and Tomlinson came a week after Conley removed Charles Townsend from St. Peter's for engaging in an inappropriate but non-sexual relationship with a 19-year-old altar server, and a few days after Conley held a meeting with 500 parishioners from St. Peter's. Their message to me was clear and honest. They desired transparency and objectivity, and that is my promise to you and all the faithful in the diocese as I move forward, he wrote. Conley announced he had assembled a panel of senior advisors, members of his own staff, and from the Archdiocese of Omaha, and a mental health expert to help evaluate abuse allegations. And an outside investigator will examine and evaluate how Conley's staff responded to allegations of improper behavior by Townsend and how Conley has responded to the allegations of sexual abuse. Conley's letter also acknowledged a sexual abuse allegation that surfaced publicly last week when a 37-year-old Lincoln native told a writer for the American Conservative he'd been attacked by James Benton more than 2 decades ago. After the man reported the allegations to the diocese last year, Benton resigned his pastorate, Conley wrote. The bishop also restricted the retired priest from exercising public ministry and prohibited him from being alone with minors. Benton had been investigated before. He was accused in 2002 of inappropriately touching a minor in the early 1980s, but the allegation could not be substantiated, Conley wrote.
Okay. Man accidentally released from the Buffalo County Jail. In Kearney, Nebraska, law enforcement officials are looking for an inmate who was inadvertently released from the Buffalo County Jail on Monday. Roger G. True, 33, is wanted on a Kearney County warrant on charges of use of a weapon to commit a felony and make felony terroristic threats. According to Buffalo County Sheriff Office, True was released from jail early Monday after serving a 10-day Buffalo County sentence for driving under suspension. True was wanted on the Kearney County warrant and should have been taken there. Sheriff Neil Miller said the jail staff failed to place a hold on True when he was released. True is described as a white, 5'9" and 165-pound male with short blonde hair and blue eyes.
Okay, here's a couple of shorter items. A woman injured in a shooting early Sunday morning told police she was hit during a drive-by at 17th and E Streets, a department spokeswoman said Monday. Officers were sent to the area at about 2 a.m., and a short time later, the 20-year-old woman showed up at a Lincoln hospital with a non-life-threatening gunshot wound on her leg. Officer Angela Sands said, the woman said she was leaving her friend's house and walking to her vehicle a block away when she was hit in the right shin. Sands said she heard multiple gunshots fired from the vehicle but didn't believe she was targeted. Sands said no other injuries or damage was reported to police. The woman didn't have a description of the vehicle involved. Police encourage anyone with information to call 402-441-6000 or make an anonymous report to Crime Stoppers at 402-475-3600. Well, here's one of those crazy stories that kind of happened been happening in Lincoln lately. A naked man believed to be high on LSD peed on a security vehicle, got stunned with a taser, and fought officers in East Lincoln Friday night, a department spokeswoman said Monday. Just before midnight, a security guard in the State Farm Insurance parking lot near 84th and O Streets saw the naked 18-year-old trespassing in the lot. Officer Angela Sands said the 29-year-old guard confronted the man who slapped him and then urinated on his vehicle, Sands said. When a police officer arrived, the man was still naked and he jumped on top of the police cruiser, she said. The naked man charged at the officer after he got out of his cruiser, so the officer shot him with his taser, Sands said. The taser's electrical probes were ineffective, and the man struggled with the officer, punching him in the head and face, she said. It took 6 police officers to detain the man, who was then taken to a Lincoln hospital with a suspected LSD overdose and a pre-existing medical condition, she said. His arrest in connection with the struggle is pending his release from the hospital, Sands said. He should get together with the guy with the sword last week.
Oh my!
Not funny, but
oh my stars.
Well, it kind of is.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. And then where do we go from that? Beatles.
Nope, not yet. We got to do the obituaries.
Oh, we're starting obituaries early. We have 8 minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
So I thought we had room for Beatles.
All right.
Because, and this one I dedicate to Ryan because he loves bugs. After peak 17, hungry beetles taper off, but plants in South Omaha and Sarpy County are still getting hit hard this summer. Sue Atkins' 3-foot-tall flowers in her Omaha garden look like sticks. That's because hungry Japanese beetles stripped off the leaves. They just love those, Atkins said. The beetles emerged in the Omaha area in June. Jonathan Larson, an entomologist with Nebraska Extension in Douglas County, said that although the bugs have hit hard in parts of the metro area, it appears the beetles have not been as bad as they were last year in most of Douglas County. He said that's based on calls from the public and conversations with landscapers and others. Larson said last summer's invasion, a particularly bad season for the voracious bugs, increased awareness. That's likely resulted in more homeowners putting down treatments such as soil insecticides this spring to kill the beetles in their larval form before they emerge from the ground, he said. A big problem with the invasive insect is that they aren't picky eaters and are known to target as many as 300 species of plants. Larson said some parts of the Omaha metro area, including South Omaha and Sarpy County, still got hit hard by the beetles this summer. He said that it's hard to say why those areas would get hit worse, but it's possible there are differences in the soil in those areas that help the bugs thrive while they are underground in their larval form of a grub. Atkins lives near 50th and Q Streets in South Omaha. Along with hitting flowers, the bugs also devoured his raspberry bush. Atkins said she doesn't use insecticides or organic treatments in her garden. She said that she is a volunteer for a dog rescue group, and she always has several pups at her house and yard, and wouldn't want to risk them ingesting anything that she might use to treat her garden. She attacks the bugs by picking them off plants each day and dropping the pests in a bucket of soapy water to kill them. Jody Green, an entomologist with Nebraska Extension in Lancaster County, said the bugs have hit some parts of the county worse than others. She said the insects particularly love linden trees, shrub roses, and fruit trees. The good news for gardeners is the bugs start dying off in mid to late August, Larson said, although they can linger into September. The window for using soil insecticides has passed, but organic products containing neem oil can still be used. The quarter-inch bugs can be identified by their 5 white tufts of hair on the sides of their abdomen, and also their shiny colored green and copper backs. Japanese beetles are considered the most widespread turf grass pest in the U.S., costing more than $460 million a year to control, according to the U.S. Agricultural Department. Larson said the beetles population also can be affected by disease and parasites, which leads to an up and down cycle in their count. Last summer was a peak population in recent years, he said. He said it's hard to predict what next summer will look like. All I know is last year, instead of green beans, I had things that had holes in them. So back to you.
Okay. Well, before we start this week's reading of the funeral arrangements and notices in the papers, as a, well, I'll read it and see what you think. And that's fans and friends, including Mariah Carey and Missy Elliott, offered prayers and well wishes to the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, who is seriously ill.
Oh, no.
A person close to Franklin who spoke on the condition of anonymity because the person was not allowed to publicly talk about the topic told the Associated Press on Monday that the singer is seriously ill. No more details were provided. Carey, who considers Franklin one of her biggest influences, wrote on Twitter that she is praying for the Queen of Soul. Missy Elliott said the public has to celebrate iconic artists before they die. So many of them have given us decades of timeless music, the rapper wrote on Twitter. Mark Frost, Andy Cohen, and Ciara also posted about Franklin, who is considered one of the greatest singers of all time and is known for hits like Respect and You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman. Franklin, who had battled undisclosed health issues in recent years, canceled planned concerts earlier this year after she was ordered by her doctor to stay off the road and rest up. She was originally scheduled to perform on her 76th birthday in March in Newark, New Jersey, and at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival in April. Last year, the icon announced her plans to retire, saying she would perform at some select things. One of those select events was a gala for Elton John's 25th anniversary of his AIDS Foundation in November in New York City, where Franklin closed the event with a collection of songs including I Say a Little Prayer and Freeway. Well, let's hope Aretha comes out better than ever.
Yes.
Well, it's 47 minutes after the hour, and it's time to move on to today's death notices and funeral arrangements. And I'll begin with those found in today's Journal Star. The first is for Cochran, Peggy R. Cochran, age 91 of Lincoln, formerly a resident of Venice, Illinois, that is, and Granite City, Illinois. Memorials to the American Cancer Society or the American Lung Association, Wayuka Funeral Home, handling the arrangements. Husnecker, Martha Jane Husnecker, maiden name of Ferris, no age has been provided. Memorials to be directed to the care of the family for later designation, and Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home is taking care of the arrangements. Munson, Ada Munson, age 94 of Lincoln, no funeral home is listed. Memorials to the Unitarian Church or Planned Parenthood, and the Unitarian Church is located at 6300 A Street. Young, Sharon Lee Young, age 75 of Lincoln. Memorials to the family for future designation. Roper and Sons taking care of the arrangements. Botcher, Larry A. Botcher, Bottcher, age 60 of Talmadge. Goody Mortuary in Nebraska City is assisting with arrangements. Eilers, Marilyn A. Eilers, age 82 of Lincoln. Memorials to Wind Song Equitherapy at tothewind.org. Well, Metcalf Funeral Home in Lincoln can help you with any questions you may have. Ludi, L-U-D-I, Chris Ludi, age 28, of Berlin, Germany, formerly of Wahoo. He died August 9th. In lieu of flowers, memorials to the family for later designation. Bruce Nabity Funeral Home in Wahoo is assisting with arrangements. Weber, Jerry B. Weber, age 72 of Lincoln. Memorials in lieu of flowers to UNICEF, ASPCA, or the Michael J. Fox Foundation. Buthurst, Mazer, and Love is handling the arrangements. Frenzel, Darrell Wayne Frenzel, age 79. He passed away in Highlands Ranch, Colorado. Darrell's wishes that his ashes will be spread over his beloved Cache la Poudre River. No other information is available. Chuck Scott, age 74, died August 10th. More information is probably on its way. And Meister, Jerry, nicknamed Jerry Meister, was 81 of Brainerd. Chermak Funeral Home is handling the arrangements. I don't know if Chermak is in Brainerd or not. Gene Penton, age 87, Lincoln. Let's see. Memorials are suggested to the First United Methodist Church, which is at 2723 North 50th Street in Lincoln. Well, Buthurst, Mazer, and Love Funeral Home can answer any of your questions. And those, Kendra, are today's notices in the Lincoln Journal-Star.
Okay, we have a lot in the Omaha World Herald. First, Bach, B-A-K, Audrey M. Bach, maiden name Schiffer, 86, has a memorial service to be held on Wednesday, August 15th at 10 a.m. at the West Center Chapel. Memorial contributions in Audrey's name may be made to the Alzheimer's Association. Berg, Martin R. Berg, age 57. Memorial service Thursday, 11 a.m. at Calvary Christian Church, Bellevue, Nebraska. Benassi, Lawrence M. Benassi, a veteran. Services Thursday, 1 p.m. at the 72nd Street Chapel. Interment, Holy, Sephulchre Schlepper Cemetery. Visitations begin on the 72nd Street Chapel on Wednesday at 5 p.m. with a wake service at 7 p.m. Memorials to Alzheimer's Association or Catholic Charities. Boswell, Betty Boswell, age 87. Services will be 11 a.m. Friday, August 17th at Calvary Lutheran Church. Brian, James John Brian, nicknamed Jim, age 64. In North Charleston, South Carolina, the funeral services will follow at 11 a.m. at the funeral home with Richard Clapp, pastor of Gibbons Baptist Church, presiding. The burial with military honors will be 2 p.m. Friday at the Buford National Cemetery in Buford, South Carolina. In lieu of flowers, Jim wanted donations sent to the Hollings Cancer Center in Charleston, South Carolina. Donations can also be made through connecttomusic.edu/cancer. Please specify hematology. Burgoyne, Margaret Burgoyne, Burgoyne, nicknamed Mickey, age 93. Services Tuesday at 2 p.m. at the Hoy Kilnowski Funeral Home, interment at Silver City Cemetery. Handled by Hoy Kilnowski Funeral Home in Council Bluffs. Cole, Mary K. Cole, age 89. Memorial services Wednesday at 1 p.m. at the John A. Gentleman 72nd Chapel. Conn, Jerry M. Conn, C-O-N-N, age 67. Funeral 1 p.m. Friday, August 17th at the Moser Memorial Chapel in Fremont. Okay, Dickey, Marion B. Dickey. He was 75. The family will receive friends Thursday, 1 p.m. at the Holy Kilnowski Funeral Home for the celebration of life services. Private family burial at the Grange Cemetery. Memorials may be directed to the family. Durant, and I think this is Sister Mary Stephen Durant, OSM, age 87. Complete notice later. Erftmeyer, Adelaide and Erftmeyer, that's E-R-F-T-M-I-E-R, nicknamed Quirky, age 81. Services Friday, 8/17 at 10 a.m. at the Christ the King Catholic Church. Memorials are suggested to the Sarah J. Erftmeyer Scholarship Fund. care of Omaha Archdiocese or the Christ the King Educational Trust Fund. Favre, Leora Jean Favre, age 51. Celebration of Leora's life, Wednesday, August 15th at 11 a.m. at the Water's Edge Church in Gretna. Memorials to the Water's Edge Church or Havelock United Methodist Church. To leave a condolence, visit BrahmanMortuary.com. Okay, Goodrich, Charles E. Goodrich, Charlie, 76. Mass of Christian burial, Thursday, August 16th at 7 p.m. at the St. Robert Bellarmine Catholic Church. Memorials are suggested to the Buffett Cancer Center or Metropolitan Community College. Goodrich, Ruth Elizabeth, maiden name Harrison, age 94. Mass of the Christian burial, 10 a.m. Saturday, August 18th at St. Joseph's Catholic Church in York. Memorials may be directed to the St. Gregory the Great Seminary in Seward, Nebraska, the Newman Center in Lincoln, the University of Nebraska-Lincoln General Fund St. Joseph Church or School, or to the donor's choice. That's at Metz Mortuary. Holland, Jerry, that's Jerry Holland, age 82. Let's see, it looks like family services will be held at a later date under the direction of Minnick Funeral Home in Wisner, Nebraska. Hostman, Patsy L., and that's Hosman, age 92, complete notice later. Timothy Jensen, 49, no services from Good Shepherd Funeral Home. Johnson, Bonnie Johnson, 87. Memorial services, 11 a.m. Saturday, August 18th at the First Lutheran Church in Blair, Nebraska. Memorials to the DAV or Blair Rescue. Kraft, Daniel Joseph Kraft, age 60, a veteran. Services Wednesday, August 15th at 1 p.m. at the West Center Chapel. At 1 p.m. at the West Center Chapel with military honors by American Legion Post Number 1. Memorials will be directed by the family. Lauer, Daryl J. Lauer, or Lower, Lower, age 91, complete notice later. Manhart, Dr. Mary F. Manhart, age 74, complete notice later. McBreen, Bernadette R. McBreen, Bernie, age 88. Celebration of Bernie's life, Thursday at 10 a.m. at Brahman Mortuary, 72nd Street Chapel, interment in Mount Hope Cemetery. McIntosh, Nicholas H. McIntosh, age 30. Memorial services will be held in Omaha at Lifegate Church, West Dodge, on Friday, August 17th at 2 p.m. with a short reception to follow. Their family requests that these services be a celebration of Nick's life and a celebration of power of restoration to family and to Christ in our lives. In lieu of flowers, please consider a donation to the Nicholas Haynes McIntosh Scholarship Fund at Northeast Community College in Norfolk, Nebraska. Meister, Jerome Meister, Jerry, age 81. Funeral Mass, 10 a.m. Thursday, Holy Trinity Church in Brainerd. Pistola, Dominic J. Pistola, age 83, a veteran. Services Wednesday, August 15th, 10 a.m. at Zion Lutheran Church. Interment Calvary Cemetery with military honors by the Benson VFW Post 2503. In lieu of flowers, memorials to Zion Lutheran Church. Swigert, Rand D. And that's R-A-N-D, and then D-E-E. No age was given. Celebration of Life services will be Thursday, August 16th at 6:30 at the Ashland American Legion. Apparently a veteran. Memorials can be made out to Ashland Youth Ball Association, Pheasants Forever, or the Nebraska Humane Society. Dogs only. Not cats. Tilson, Dorothy J. Tilson. Dottie, age 84, services Tuesday, August 14th, 11 a.m., West Center Chapel, interment Evergreen. The last one, Williams, Charlie May, age 78. Celebration of Charlie May's life, Friday, August 17th at 10:30 a.m. at North Omaha Church of Christ, Interment, Mount Hope. And that's the end of those.
Thanks, Kendra. Well, it is the top of the hour, and it is time for us to take our mid-morning break. But before we do, we once again want to remind everyone that listeners' memorials to the Radio Talking Book Network are tax deductible and go a long way to keeping Radio Talking Book on the air. Please keep Radio Talking Book in mind when memorials are listed as Donor's Choice or your favorite charity. Donations should be sent to Radio Talking Book Network, 7101 Newport Avenue, Suite 205, Omaha, Nebraska, 68152. Thank you for being a Radio Talking Book listener and supporter.
Thank you very much, Don. We'll return to Don and Kendra in just a moment. We're tuned to the Radio Talking Book Network in Omaha, Nebraska. We've been proudly serving our blind and visually impaired listeners for over 43 years.
This letter,
Radio
this guy,
Talking Book is brought to you with the
He's
cooperation
a
of
Marine.
KIOS-FM in Omaha
Oh, yeah.
and
Well,
statewide.
he's-
through
Is it
facilities
sad?
of NET,
Well,
radio,
he's-
and television.
he's one of these
My friends
guys.
is just a little bit past the
Randy?
o'clock.
I
That means it's
defended
time
America.
to see their lunch menus, and here
Right.
is Jay Nielsen.
You don't hear very many
Good morning.
veterans really
It's
talk
Tuesday,
like that.
August 14th.
This
I have
guy's
a
here.
nephew who is currently in the Army and is
Folks,
completely a Trump
is
lover.
creamy tuna and
Oh, yeah.
rice.
He has a
that's
profile, but he hated Obama and he was very, very
Wheat dinner roll
visible
with
about it. And
margarine,
it's like, that's
sliced
your commander in
apricots,
chief.
and 1% milk.
You know?
I'm sure the military. This guy's an ex-Marine.
And just a reminder, you can hear the senior lunch menus every day, Monday through Friday, right here
Okay.
on Radio Talking
You must
Book.
have a
All right,
cold, or are
friends,
you
listen
just
to
using a
public
cough
service
drop?
announcement
Oh,
with Becca
I
Journey
want-
before
I
we
want
return
that
for the
coffee,
second hour
I
of the
think.
newspapers.
kind of
Coming
messed up
next.
my throat. I don't know why. I just air conditioning will do that to me too.
Oh.
You know, I get if it's blowing on me in the car,
Really?
sometimes it bothers me.
I love air conditioning, as you can tell by my total redness. I'm missing it right now a lot.
It is kind of warm in
The
here.
University of Iowa
Well,
Department of Computer
you've got-
Sciences.
You've got,
invite people
equipment that's gonna
who have
radiate,
experienced vision loss
and
in the
you have a
last
short-
10 years
oh, thank God we needed
to
air.
participate in an interview about your
What
experience
time does this
with vision
benefit at Sam's Club start?
barriers and
I gotta look it
complications,
up.
and
I
the
don't have it off
strategies you
the top of my
employ
head,
to
but I think it's
address
7-ish.
both
Okay.
technical and non-technical. The
Just
interview
got
will
it
take
last
from
night.
30 to 90 minutes, and this interview will be audio recorded. The long-term goal is to develop technologies to
Okay.
And you
improve
said
the
it's
quality of
$10?
life of people with
I believe it's
recent
10 to
vision
get in.
loss.
You need to
The
get on
study will
Facebook. It's so
occur
much
over the
easier,
phone.
and then invite you.
And you will be paid $20 for
I know, yeah, I
participation.
know. You know, do Facebook.
Again, this is
I
for
can't
people who have
figure out how
experienced
the hell
vision
it
loss within the last
Oh, I can
10
show you. I
years.
have trained many people.
The
No, I don't
30
wanna
to
know.
90 minute
Okay.
phone
I like being
interview
stupid.
will be recorded, and there's potential to
Oh,
get
it's not
paid
about being
$20
stupid. It's
for
just, oh, here we
participating.
go.
If you're interested,
Okay, it is
please
7 to
contact
8:30,
Kyle Rector. His
September
contact
9th.
information, phone
Sam's
number
Club Pavilion.
503
So I wonder if I can
449
email this to you. Maybe.
1736.
That's okay. I'm
Also,
gonna read it on my
email your
computer
That's our
calendar.
We
And
were
yours-
experienced.
And it is your mom's comedy?
Yes,
dash
YER.
RE
You got it. YER, your
CTOR
mom's comedy
at
show.
Okay.
UIOWA
Okay.
dot
So,
edu.
You're welcome
Again,
to
if
come.
you're
I'm
interested
doing
in
a
participating and you meet those requirements,
fundraiser on September
contact
9th.
Kyle Rector.
Oh, yeah?
I didn't create that
503
event, so I would have made it much clearer.
449
Sam's Club is
1736.
open to the public on
503
Sunday that night for the
449
children's hospital benefit.
6.
They're having us do an hour-long show. It's apparently
apparently
$10, and you can get the comedy, you get tacos, and something to drink.
Welfare
At the
Health Plan. Proudly
store?
focused
Sam's
exclusively
Club, the store.
on providing government-sponsored managed care services through Medicaid
We're donating
and
our
Medicare
services.
prescription drug plans.
I think it's going to be
for
great.
families
I think that's during the
children,
time of the Children's
and
Miracle
seniors
Network.
in Nebraska. For more about
Oh,
healthcare,
Editorial.
call today
There
at
we go.
1-888-255-2605 or visit
And his me because I've been
www.healthcare.com/Nebraska.
Is that how long your show usually is? About an hour and a half?
Thank you, Michael. Without further ado, my
Oops, and we're
friends,
back.
let's return for the second hour of the live reading of the Lincoln Journal-Star Omaha World Herald. Once again, jumping over to Studio A. Back to our readers. Hello once again to Kendra Tarbowski and Dawn Van Morlenham. Go ahead, folks.
Hello, Ryan.
Yes,
And people.
well, we are back, and that means it's time for editorials. And we begin with letters to the editors. And in the Lincoln Journal-Star, there are 3 letters today instead of the customary 2. The first is from Bill Rohrer, Rohrer of Lincoln. And Bill writes, I would like to respond to Tribune News Service article, which was from August 1, report, Marines lead in risky behavior, on the number of Marines who are heavy drinkers and tobacco users. I think the article is a slam against the Marine Corps. I grew up in Lincoln, was a paper boy for the Lincoln Star, and held the paper in high esteem. I also served 3 years in the Marine Corps. During this time, I didn't smoke and drank very little alcohol of any kind. I know from my experience that there are many good results from being a Marine. To this day, I drink very little. What the Marine Corps taught me was that I live in the best country in the world, and the Marines have played a big role maintaining the freedom we as Americans enjoy. I spent 2 years in Okinawa and would have given my life, if necessary, to protect that freedom. After my time in Asia, I returned home to the U.S. by riding a troop ship for 18 days. When we passed under the Golden Gate Bridge in California, tears of happiness rolled down my face. I then came home by train to Lincoln, and for the first time saw my 18-month-old daughter, who was born while I was protecting the freedom we enjoy at the Burlington Depot. I am very proud to have been a U.S. Marine and done my share to protect freedom. Next letter is from Emily Wynn, Lincoln, and Emily writes, in the last few weeks, we've heard statements from Senators Deb Fischer and Ben Sasse about how the Trump administration's tariffs on U.S. allies are hurting Nebraska farmers. Unfortunately, statements are all we've gotten. Our Nebraska senators have not taken any concrete action to end the trade war. If our senators wanted to end the tariffs quickly, they should threaten to vote no on the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. If Kavanaugh is confirmed, it will be by a thin margin, and it won't be possible without Fischer and Sasse's support. If they threaten to vote no, I'm positive we would see swift action to meet their demands and de-escalate the current trade war. It's time our senators to put their foot down to do something to help Nebraska farmers. Emily Wynn from Lincoln. And the last letter is from Tom DeShazo, Deshazo from Lincoln. Tom writes, a Journal-Star editorial, mayoral term limit push is shameful political play of August 1, laments the disappearance of respect from today's political discourse. Respect follows dignity down the rat hole, soon to be chased by courtesy and manners. When was the last time you considered our president to appear dignified, or considered his words to be the dignified product of deliberate, thoughtful reasoning? That's Tom DeShazo from Lincoln. Kendra?
Okay, and the Omaha World Herald under the public pulse. New view of the old market. The old market is more than home for a growing number of residents like me. The old market is a top tourist attraction and a revenue-generating district that profits Omaha and the entire state of Nebraska. There's a lot to love in the old market, yet on a recent market walk, I developed a new view. On my walk, I experienced the ever-present market vibe. I admired the many small shops, artists, musicians, and interesting people of every description. However, I began to critically observe the conditions of the area and saw it with fresh eyes of a visitor. My observations included trash-filled areas, weeds, windows and storefronts in need of cleaning or repair, empty venues needing attention from owners and management, dirty and poorly lighted alleys, and historic buildings in need of repair. Clearly, this rough, old, cherished gem needs serious attention to preserve and honor the heritage it represents and the revenue it generates. Omaha loves the old market. Let's love it enough to enjoy its vibe while recognizing concerns that need to be addressed with doable solutions. That's from Sharon Martin of Omaha. Worry about victims' loved ones. As a law-abiding citizen, I am sick and tired of the amount of publicity given to murderers in newspapers and TV. What about the victims and their families and friends who are devastated by the loss of a dear one? They are also victims whose happiness is destroyed. Their suffering lasts perhaps the rest of their life. Why aren't we more concerned about their welfare? Mercy and forgiveness sound fine on paper, but it doesn't begin to restore the lives of innocent people. That was from Rosemary Holman of Omaha. Is U.S. addicted to killing? I am at a loss to understand our nation's capacity for letting ourselves kill and be killed in every form imaginable. 61% of Nebraska voters affirm the rightness of one form of killing. The state plans to act it out Tuesday on Carrie Dean Moore in Lincoln. 16 years of war-making, mass shootings every few months, majority death penalty states, a gun for every man, woman, and child in our country. It overwhelms. When will it be enough? I watch as religion, pacifism, and education law try to limit the life-taking and fail over and over. Are we a nation of addicts? Maybe. An addict never has enough. One action that might save us from our self-destructive violence is an outside intervention. Can we envision that? And that's from Sister Maureen Connolly, Omaha Alternatives to Violence Project. Penalty far from swift. Whatever happened to a swift punishment for a crime mentioned in Ecclesiastes 8:11? Carrie Dean Moore is now up for execution for two 1979 murders. Really? 38 years after he was sentenced to death row? What good does that do? Wow, just think of all the people that money could have helped that went for 38 years footing the bill for more. From Merrick Campagna of Omaha. Two distinct immigration paths. Immigrants, lifeblood of Nebraska, AG, that was from August 12th World Herald, reinforced to me the notion that we frequently blur the line between legal and illegal immigration, sometimes on purpose. This great country was built on immigration. Great waves of immigrants came to this country at times during the last 2 centuries. However, nearly all of it was legal and documented. Today, the United States allows more legal immigration than any other country on the planet, and by a wide margin. We need to continue to allow those who want to come here to better their lives to immigrate here legally. I also believe we need to aggressively stop the flow of illegal immigration. Legal and illegal immigration are two completely different things, and we need to do a much better job of distinguishing between the two. That's from Dave Riebel of Omaha. I have 2 more. Laws need to be enforced. The recent ICE raid in O'Neill, Nebraska has drawn attention to the political divide in our country and state. Governor Pete Ricketts, Representatives Don Bacon and Adrian Smith, and Senator Deb Fisher and Ben Sass are stressing law and order, while State Senator Bob Christ, Jane Riebald, and Jane Klebe are among those siding with the plight of those detained in the raid. It is alleged that most of those rounded up entered the United States illegally. The ringleaders are accusing of providing the illegal labor, taking a cut of their pay, failing to pay taxes, providing fake identification, social security numbers and names, and money laundering. Local businesses, including tomato and potato farms and a feedlot, hired the workers. Democrats claim that the raid is just a political action targeting innocent, hardworking people. This ignores the laws that have been broken. If Nebraska has a labor shortage and can't provide local workers, then fix the immigration system, allow for temporary guest workers, and stop blaming the federal government for enforcing the law. It's from Jeff Cena of Bellevue. Last one, remembering Bennington Chief. We moved into a new home in Bennington last November, and I had just started to get acquainted with Chief Les Johnson. While on a jog last spring, I saw a Bennington police vehicle coming and flagged it down. It was Chief Les, who was on duty during evening hours and his favorite time to work, he said. I had previously emailed the chief, so it was nice to say hello to him in person. He was so friendly and personable. We were all hoping for his recovery following the accident he had. God bless Chief Les, as well as all his family and relatives. That was Scott Yankee of Bennington.
Well, this next editorial is from William Falk, whose normal job is the editor-in-chief of a magazine called The Week. Well, this summer, forests are bursting into flame all over the world. More than 50 wildfires have scorched a shocked Sweden, some of them north of the Arctic Circle. as temperatures have soared into the 90s amid withering drought. In normally chilly Oslo, the mercury climbed past 86 degrees for 16 consecutive days. The Brits have been gobsmacked by 95-degree weather. It hit 98 in Montreal, and in Japan, 22,000 people were hospitalized when temperatures climbed to a record 106. In Arizona, Southern California, Pakistan, and India, summer's broiler has been turned up to unbearable levels, past 110 degrees, and people are dying. Heat, drought, and fires of this scale and scope are not normal, or perhaps they now are. Climate change, says Elena Manikova of the World Meteorological Organization, is not a future scenario. It is happening now. It is human nature to postpone change and sacrifice as long as possible. We don't act, especially collectively, until a crisis is upon us. This penchant for procrastination is why the national debt of $21.3 trillion is climbing at a rate of nearly $1 trillion a year, and why we're doing nothing to address the approaching funding shortfalls of Medicare and Social Security. Why deal with such unpleasantness now when we can push decisions off into the future? So it goes for greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. The evidence clearly shows that the planet is warming, that the jet stream and other wind patterns have been disrupted, that ancient ice is melting and seas are rising, and that weather extremes such as droughts, heat waves, torrential rains, and flooding have all become more common and more prolonged. And the consequences have just begun. But what's most important is our comfort today, the next quarter's GDP, and the re-election of incumbent politicians. Climate change, the national debt, Social Security, let our children and grandchildren deal with all that. We'll be dead by then, suckers.
Pretty sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Casey Affleck opens up in the wake of the hashtag Me Too. Actor says harassment allegations stem from unprofessional conduct on film set. Casey Affleck has been mostly absent from the public eye for the past year, but in the wake of the hashtag Me Too and Time's Up movements, and with a new film coming out this fall, he is for the first time addressing lingering questions about earlier harassment allegations. The 42-year-old actor, producer, and director is taking responsibility for the unprofessional atmosphere on the set of 2010's I'm Still Here that led to civil lawsuits from two women who worked on the film. He also spoke to the Associated Press about what he learned from the hashtag Me Too conversation and what he's doing at his production company to bring new voices into Hollywood. During Affleck's Best Actor campaign for Manchester by the Sea in 2016, the spotlight was turned back on the civil lawsuits filed by a cinematographer and a producer who worked on I'm Still Here for breach of contract. One of the women also sued for sexual harassment, and both described an uncomfortable atmosphere on the set of the unconventional mockumentary. It was an unprofessional environment. The buck had to stop with me, being one of the producers, and I have to accept responsibility for that. Affleck told AP of the making of I'm Still Here, which he produced and directed. I contributed to that unprofessional environment, and I tolerated that kind of behavior from other people, and I wish I hadn't. He added, I behaved in a way that allowed others to behave in a way that was really unprofessional, and I'm sorry. Although the lawsuits were settled outside of court, Affleck's name in 2016 and 2017 became associated with a long list of men who have abused power in Hollywood. While Affleck had addressed the lawsuits, including in an AP interview from July 2017, he also has not spoken publicly since the hashtag Me Too and Time's Up overtook the culture 10 months ago. In that time, Affleck also opted out of presenting the Best Actress award at the Oscars, traditionally the responsibility of the previous year's Best Actor winner. Instead, Jodie Foster and Jennifer Lawrence handed the trophy to Frances McDormand. I think it was the right thing to do, just given everything that was going on in our culture at the moment, Affleck said. And having two incredible women go present the Best Actress award felt like the right thing. Affleck said that he'd been learning a lot in the past few years, listening to the conversation, and has moved away from a place of defensiveness to one of finding his own culpability. I think, bigger picture in this business, women have been underrepresented and underpaid and objectified and diminished and humiliated and belittled in a bazillion ways and just generally had a mountain of grief thrown at them forever. And no one was really making too much fuss about it, myself included, until a few women with the kind of courage and wisdom to stand up and say, you know what? Enough is enough, Affleck said. Those are the people who are kind of leading this conversation and should be leading the conversation. And I know just enough to know that in general, I need to keep my mouth shut and listen and try to figure out what's going on and be a supporter and a follower in a little teeny tiny way that I can. Of his decision to do an interview now, Affleck said, if I'm not promoting a movie, I'm not going to do any press. So that's why you haven't heard from me. He's also taking these lessons both to work and home to his two sons who are ages 14 and 10. I want to be in a world where grown men model compassion, decency, and also contrition when it's called for. And I certainly tell my sons to own their mistakes when they make them, he said. Over the past year, Affleck has been spending time with his kids and girlfriend and hard at work on various projects, including The Old Man and the Gun, a kind-hearted film where he plays a cop trying to track down an older bank robber played by Robert Redford. He also has directed a film, Light of My Life, a father-daughter story co-starring Elizabeth Moss, which he said some people will see soon. The Old Man and the Gun, his third collaboration with director David Lowery, will premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival before opening in theaters on September 28th. Lowery always assembles a really nice group of people around him, Affleck said. It sort of makes its way into the movie. It's such a nice experience to watch one of his movies. At his production company, Sea Change Media, he said he and his development partner, Whitaker Lauder, are looking to shepherd filmmakers with stories that aren't well represented in Hollywood. It's nice to be able to take the teeny tiny bit of experience that she and I have and use it to help other people get started, Affleck said. There's really no better feeling than that.
Okay, thanks, Kendra. Well, here's another one for today's Living in Entertainment, and that is the medical advice column, Ask the Doctors, authored by Doctors Elizabeth Cohen and Eve Glazier. Well, dear doctor, my doctor offered to prescribe sleeping pills because I'm under a lot of stress at work and am suffering from insomnia. I'm tempted, but the side effects scare me. How often do people sleepwalk or binge eat or do other activities after taking sleeping pills? I even heard that one woman drove across the country. Well, dear reader, when it comes to having trouble getting a good night's sleep, you're not alone. It's estimated that at least 1/3 and perhaps up to 1/2 of all Americans experience some kind of sleep problem. These range from the occasional sleepless night to the chronic and at times debilitating insomnia that affects up to 10% of the U.S. population. To deal with this unwanted wakefulness, an estimated 9 million Americans now turn to sleep aids of one kind or another. And considering the complex physiological mechanisms that regulate sleep, it's not that surprising that there would be some side effects associated with these medications. The medications most commonly associated with the odd behaviors you mentioned are solipidem, sold under the brand name Ambien, and esopiclone, sold under the brand name Lunesta. They fall into a class of drugs known as hypnotics. These work by binding to certain receptors in the brain, which affects neural activity in a way that allows the user to slip into sleep. Although the majority of users experience few, if any, side effects, some people have reported a range of peculiar and potentially dangerous behaviors that they had no memory of taking part in. These include waking up with food or dirty dishes in their beds, then finding a mess in the kitchen that indicated they had prepared a meal sometime during the night. Other anecdotes include a man waking up in the family car in his pajamas, parked miles from home with no idea of how he got there. A woman reported receiving clothing deliveries from a $2,200 online shopping spree she had no memory of. And another woman woke up shivering in a bathtub filled to the brim with cold water and surrounded by burning candles. As we mentioned, these side effects are considered to be rare. Labels of the relevant drugs now carry prominent warnings that, while under the influence of the medication, it's possible to walk, eat, or even drive and have no memory of it afterwards. Also carried in the warning labels is the possibility that varying levels of cognitive impairment, as well as physical symptoms like headache, nausea, and a bad taste in the mouth, can persist into the following day. While the temporary respite these sleep aids can offer from a bout of insomnia is helpful, it's important to note that they are not intended for long-term use. Rather, they are meant for occasional use to help someone who is struggling with sleeplessness to get through a rough patch. However, because the drugs are quite effective and also potentially habit-forming, it's possible to become dependent on them over the long term. If you do decide to try them, please keep that and the label warnings in mind. Now you can send your questions to askthedoctors@mednet.ucla.edu.
Wow, I have woken up in an icy tub and I don't take Ambien. I just have hot flashes. So.
Oh, okay.
All right. And on that note, are you done?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm finished.
All right. Okay, it's time for Dear Amy. Dear Amy, I have a very close friend who is extremely depressed. She's negative about every aspect of her life, marriage, career, and self-image. She posts negative memes on Facebook about how ugly she is, how depressed she is, and how bad life is. She is on medication and is seeing a licensed therapist. She's also extremely overweight. None of this is helping. She has tried different meds and has seen different therapists. Every time I talk to her, she is negative, depressed, and complains constantly. I want to help her, but I don't know what else I can offer her. We have been close for many years, and she has always been depressed, but it's far worse than ever. She has told me numerous times that I don't fully know what has happened in her past, so I will never understand what she's going through. And then she proceeds to put herself down. Her marriage is falling apart, and I know she has many issues going on with her career and her life. But is everything really that bad? What else can I offer besides a listening ear without getting down myself? What advice can I give her when she is complaining? Out of answers. Dear out. I think that offering advice in this context is a non-starter. When someone is clearly depressed and so obviously negative, the best thing you can do is to point the person towards therapy and treatment. And so you can respond, what does your therapist say about that? Your friend might respond that she doesn't disclose a lot of this to her therapist. Many people, paradoxically, don't actually disclose the very things that cause the most pain to their therapist. She might say that she isn't currently taking her meds. Encourage her to seek and continue seek treatment. I believe that posting negative or self-hating thoughts on social media can actually perpetrate a negative cycle. And many people reach out in their way to vent. In turn, receive supportive comments and affirmation, which they must find, otherwise they won't do it. Try not to judge her harshly for doing this. A huge challenge for friends and family members is dealing with someone with depression is to be present and supportive while not taking on the burdens of the depressed person. The concept of self-care is currently in vogue, but many of us don't really know how to exercise self-care in our lives. In your case, it might mean learning to ritualize walking outdoors, reading poetry, or listening to a favorite piece of music. If you aren't feeling strong, you can't be a supportive presence. Dear Amy, this guy that I used to work with started a friends with benefits relationship with me about 3 years ago. I quit my job when I graduated from college. He then reached out to me and we hooked up again. Right after we hooked up, he told me that he didn't like me and they liked another girl. Fast forward, it's now 3 years later and he's still part of my life. I have tried to stop this multiple times, but he always says, let's talk it out, and we end up hooking up. He still states that he doesn't like me and doesn't want to have a relationship with me. Every time I ignore him or tell him I don't want to be friends with benefits anymore, he tries harder to be in my life. I just don't know what to do. My friends all think that he likes me, but if he really did like me, he wouldn't be doing this. Any idea what I should do? Frustrated. Dear frustrated, you actually do know what to do and you don't seem ready to do it. When you start to value yourself more and love yourself more, you'll see this pattern for what it is: depleting, degrading, and depressing. The day you say enough and decline to talk it out will be a great day for you. And lastly, dear Amy, the question from bothered daughter-in-law really bothered me. Bothered reported that her mother-in-law, an alcoholic and organ transplant recipient, seems to be drinking again. As a grateful recipient of a transplanted organ, I know that it is extremely important to protect my second chance at life. This family needs to act right now. From Grateful. Dear Grateful, this woman's drinking is definitely putting her health at risk.
Well, thanks, Kendra, and thanks, Amy. Well, the headline on this article is called, or it says, New Faces All Over School. Kindergartners share first day with Campbell teachers. The first day of school ritual unfolded in traditional fashion Monday morning at Campbell Elementary. The anticipation and anxiety, the nerves and the excitement playing out in equal measure. You would never know it because Michaela Schumacher and Julia Albrecht were models of professionalism, holding their white banners with their last names printed in friendly red ink, greeting their kindergartners with hugs and smiles and high fives. They posed for pictures. They appreciated the Spider-Man backpacks and glittery new shoes. They seamlessly guided their new students into lines while the parents dispensed hugs and waves and remained, for the most part, a respectable distance from their kids as they bid them goodbye on this first day of school. Schumacher and Albrecht had something in common with their kindergartners. This was their first day too. As the final days of summer played out last week, the two 22-year-old University of Nebraska Lincoln graduates were excited and anxious, eager and hopeful, and ready to put all that preparation into action. I'm going to grow so much with them, Albrecht said. The two kindergartner teachers are among 15 new teachers starting at Campbell this fall, 8 starting their first year. They are among 223 new teachers with no prior teaching experience at LPS this year, 52% of the 430 newly hired certified staff. As baby boomers continue to retire, LPS has watched years of experience walk out the door, an average of more than 24 years of experience each year, many of those retiring after 30 or more years of teaching. Even so, the average age of teachers has remained fairly constant the past 5 years, between 40 and 42. Campbell principal Julia Lawler said she looks at how potential hires will work with other teachers in that grade and said layers of support, fellow teachers, instructional coaches, and mentors are built into the school to help those new to the profession. Albrecht and Schumacher said they learned a lot during their time student teaching, and Campbell's staff and administrators have been a great resource. They know as kindergartner teachers, they'll be tasked with teaching their students all the things older students already know: how to sit on the rug, how to stand in line, how to raise their hands. They know they will be those students' first exposure to school, and they want it to be positive. And so the two new teachers called their students by their names, confronted the teary-eyed, and helped them find their cubbies and their names on the tables. They taught their students to sit crisscross applesauce, and that in Mrs. Albrecht's room, when they heard their teacher say chicka chicka this week, that they were to answer boom, boom, and pay attention. Nearby in Miss Schumacher's room, the students learned they weren't the only ones new to school this year. So, do we need to be scared? The new teacher asked her new students. No, she answered for them, a few hands nodding in agreement. No, we can do it together.
Okay, well, got some Halloweens that I think would be helpful for
You
everybody.
bet.
So go ahead and go with that.
You bet.
Alrighty then. Okay, first, dear Heloise, my husband died in February and I have learned a lot of things the hard way since then. Here is a particular practical hint. Think twice about which companies you give authorization to bill your credit card directly for payment. For groups like health clubs, as an example, know that you may have difficulty getting them to stop billing when you stop using their services. It's also harder to dispute a charge with this arrangement. The provider may cooperate only when communicating directly with the cardholder. That's from Carol G. via email. My condolences on the loss of your husband, Carol. Thanks for the thoughtful hint for our readers. Your dear readers, your credit score is important when you are building your financial future. Your credit score is a number from 300 to 850 that considers many factors. If you pay your bills on time, how many credit accounts you have, and how much you use that credit, how many new accounts you open, and any delinquent accounts you may have, and other things. Companies may look at your credit score when deciding whether to lend you money, sell you goods or services, and then collect them over time, or sell you a home. Businesses know that your past behavior is a good indication of what may happen in the future. Keep your bills up to date and try not to overextend yourself. That's from Heloise herself. One more. Dear Heloise, every time we dine out with the grandchildren, we get food from the children's menu, but they are then given adult-size utensils. How is a 2-year-old expected to use the same size fork and spoon as me? Restaurant, why not invest in some child-size utensils? We try to remember to bring our own, but sometimes we forget. Thank you for helping get the word out. We love your column. That's from Amy in New Jersey. Dear Heloise, online reviews can be helpful, but reviewers must be careful if they are reviewing the correct item. Often I'll read a review and the description given by the reviewer doesn't match the item I'm looking at. The reviewer should mention the item by descriptive name, model number, color, if applicable. If the person is giving a negative review, it needs to be given for the correct item. This not only helps the reader, but the vendor as well. PJ in Osceola, Florida. Great hint, PJ. Give the company a chance to make it right before writing a negative review. The company should be more than happy to resolve any issues. Last one. Dear Heloise, I love your column here in Bozeman, Montana. Recently, while organizing travel things, I put the leftover euro currency in a bag with the plug adapters we used while visiting Italy. Next trip, we'll be all set. And that's from Peter J. via email. Wonderful hint, Peter from Heloise.
Thanks, Kendra. Well, it's 38 minutes after the hour, and we're going to move on to the business and the markets. And here's some big news from McDonald's. Well, that's the restaurant chain. McDonald's on Tuesday announced a $42 million plan to spruce up its nearly 80 Nebraska locations through the end of 2019. The Nebraska plans are part of an overall $6 billion plan for the fast food giant and its franchisees that will include upgrading and modernizing most of its U.S. locations by the end of 2020. The total comes out to an average of a little more than $500,000 per restaurant in Nebraska, although the amount per location will depend on a number of factors, including how big it is and which design the franchisees chooses. Among the changes each restaurant will see include new exterior designs, upgraded dining rooms with new furniture and decor, remodeled and expanded counter space, new digital menu boards, both inside and in drive-through lanes, and digital ordering kiosks. McDonald's has 13 locations in Lincoln, as well as locations in Waverly, Seward, and Beatrice. It has 78 locations in the state, all of which are owned by franchisees. This is an exciting time for McDonald's, and we're proud to be investing nearly $42 million to provide a new experience look, and feel for guests at more than 70 McDonald's locations across Nebraska. Kristen Dobsky, Vice President of McDonald's Great Plains Co-op and owner of several Lincoln locations, said in a news release. Some local McDonald's have already undergone renovations, including the locations near 10th Street and Cornhusker Highway and 48th and Vine Streets. McDonald's is not the only fast food chain upgrading its restaurants. Subway last year announced a multi-year plan to remodel thousands of its stores over the next several years. And Wendy's is about halfway through an upgrade of its locations nationwide that started in 2011. Wendy's remodels in Lincoln have included the downtown location and the locations on both North and South 48th Streets. Panera Bread also is building 2 new Lincoln locations with drive-through lanes that will replace existing locations.
Okay, weed killer verdict poses new challenge for Bayer. Company that acquired Monsanto also acquired public's perceptions of it, a reputation advisor says. Bayer's stock dropped more than 10% Monday, 3 days after a California jury awarded $289 million to a former groundskeeper who said the popular weed killer Roundup gave him terminal cancer. The stock drop sent a cautionary signal to the company that acquired Monsanto, the maker of the weed killer, in June for $63 billion. The merger created the world's largest seed and agrochemical company, marrying Monsanto's dominance in genetically modified crops with Bayer's pesticide business. Bayer's portfolio also includes pharmaceuticals with such household brands as Aleve to Alka-Seltzer. The verdict poses a new challenge for Bayer in its quest to combat the scorn directed at Monsanto from health and environmental advocates and some consumers. For years, the company has drawn criticism and allegations about the health hazards caused by Roundup, and Monsanto faces thousands of lawsuits that assert its product is linked to cancer. Monsanto's reputational problems are now Bayer's problems, said Anthony Jondreau, a corporate reputation advisor. Lawsuits against Monsanto are nothing new, Jondreau said, adding that Bayer's risks souring sales of its other products because of its public perception of Monsanto. Any stakeholder is going to be asking right now, why would they buy Monsanto with this stuff hanging over its head? Jondreau said, I think that's a question that they have to answer, and they have to answer it sooner than they plan to. Bayer had previously announced that the Monsanto brand name would be nixed as soon as this month. In a call with reporters in June, Liam Condon, president of Bayer's Crop Science Division, said the move to lose Monsanto's name was part of a wider strategy to win back consumer trust. Separately, Bayer chief executive Werner Baumann said the company would aim to deepen our dialogue with society and listen to our critics. Neither Bayer nor Monsanto returned requests for comment. The more important point now, once we change the company name, is that we talk about what the new company will stand for, Condon said on the June call. Just changing the name doesn't do so much. We've got to explain to farmers and ultimately to consumers why this new company is important for farming, for agriculture, and for food, and how that impacts consumers and the environment. Monsanto has long maintained that its products don't cause cancer. Monsanto's Vice President Scott Partridge said Friday that the verdict does not change the fact that more than 800 scientific studies and reviews support the fact that glyphosate does not cause cancer. Partridge said Monsanto would continue to vigorously defend this product. The groundskeeper in Friday's verdict, Dwayne Johnson, was the first to have his case go to trial. Johnson's attorney said that his client used Roundup 20 to 30 times a year between mid-2012 and early 2016 while working for a school district outside of San Francisco. He was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2014. Timothy Linsenberg, one of Johnson's attorneys, said his firm is representing 2,000 people in their claims against Monsanto. In 2015, the World Health Organization said that glyphosate, the herbicide in Roundup widely marketed by Monsanto, probably causes cancer in humans. For years, environmental groups and consumer advocates have raised alarms about the health risks associated with the workers applying the weed killer on farms. But Monsanto and other agricultural companies say long-standing research upholds glyphosate's safety. The herbicide is one of the most widely used in the country, according to the Environmental Protection Agency. In his statement, Partridge said the EPA, the U.S. National Institutes of Health, and regulatory authorities around the world have concluded that glyphosate does not cause cancer. Chris Perella, an analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence, said the only alternative to glyphosate are nastier chemicals. Jandro said that when evaluating its merger with Monsanto, Bayer probably factored in the cost of future lawsuits over Roundup, but it remains to be seen, Jandro said, whether Bayer also calculated the cost of reputational risks, including the large jury verdicts.
Thanks, Kendra. Well, it's 45 minutes past the hour. That means it's time for sports. Well, this title of this article is Moose Addresses Big Ten Scandals. Bill Moose brought his typical entertaining and folksy style to his latest appearance on the Husker Sports Nightly radio program on Monday, but he also addressed the sudden rash of scandals in the Big Ten and expressed confidence in his own department. Nebraska's first-year athletic director said ongoing events at Maryland where a football player died during a summer workout and the program has been accused of a toxic culture, and Ohio State, where a committee is investigating whether head football coach Urban Meyer knew about and failed to report allegations of domestic abuse against wide receivers coach Zach Smith, are situations other schools must learn from. There have to be reporting lines. There has to be someone you can go talk to if something may be out of whack, Moose said. Learn from those. Be proactive. That's how I approach it. And make sure everybody has a means to report these kind of things because they are important. The safety and well-being of our student athletes is the most important, right there with moving toward their degrees academically. If you have the quality of young people that are going to be good in the classroom and focused on that as well as the field of competition, and you have the right coaches and support staff, you're not going to have to worry about that sort of thing. I'm very confident that at Nebraska, we do it right. We're going to continue to do it right. Moose, though, said he has confidence in his own shop and said it's frequently a topic of discussion in coaches' meetings, will be addressed in a full staff meeting in the near future, and also among his 6-person senior leadership group. You have communication lines going down and up, and I believe in that, Moose said of his senior group. We meet for 3 hours, my senior staff, on Tuesday mornings, and then they all have meetings with the people they're responsible for. My philosophy is to put people in places of leadership and then let them lead, but give them a blueprint that is a blueprint that has ownership from all of them, that you know what's expected. Most restructured the department over the course of the winter and often says the sign of a great restaurant is if a patron can't tell whether a chef is in the kitchen. This chef can leave the kitchen and know that the entire entree and the service is going to be just the way it would be if he was in the kitchen, he said. Kendra?
Okay, in soccer, Mavs men shut out an exhibition. In Green Bay, Wisconsin, the UNO men's soccer team was shut out in a 4-0 exhibition loss to Green Bay on Monday. Green Bay got goals from Robley Omar, Tomar Zluskafar, and Biran Husseini in the first half. Abraham Hill added another goal after halftime to make it 4-0. The Mavericks will open the regular season August 24th with a 6 p.m. game against UC Davis. UNO women picked 7th in league. The UNO women were picked to finish 7th in the Summit League in the conference's preseason coaches poll released Monday. Denver was picked to finish first after receiving 6 first-place votes from the league's 9 coaches. Defending the regular season champion, South Dakota State, was second with 3 first-place votes, followed by Oral Roberts, North Dakota State, North Dakota, South Dakota, and UNO. Purdue, Fort Wayne, and Western Illinois tried for 8th. UNO midfielder Emily Romero made the Summit League players to watch list. One more. Baseball, Old Timers Baseball meeting. The Nebraska Western Iowa Old Timers Baseball Association We'll meet Wednesday from 7 to 9 at the Post 331 American Legion Club on South 21st Street. The association, founded in 1951, is in its 67th year. For more information, call 402-657-9150.
Here's some news from the NFL's training camps. Well, Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay Packers, is speaking with a heightened sense of urgency as he enters his 14th NFL season. No critical words from the Green Bay Packers quarterback on Monday, a week after expressing displeasure with the effort from some young players during a portion of practice. I care about winning, number one. And I'm going to say and do the things that I feel like can advance us, Rodgers said. It's going to be tough at some points. It's not a popularity contest all the time. Rodgers said he expects to make his preseason debut Thursday night against the Pittsburgh Steelers. To earn the trust of the two-time NFL MVP, young receivers have to work hard consistently in practice. From the Denver Broncos, Paxton Lynch inched closer to full-blown bust status Monday when he was demoted to third string after Chad Kelly's solid debut in the Denver Broncos exhibition opener. Chad's played well. He played well in the scrimmage. He played well Saturday night. So he deserves the chance to be the number 2 right now, Coach Vance Joseph said. Lynch was disappointed, Joseph said, but he understands that it's a performance business. He has great potential, physical potential, but it's got to equal performance eventually, Joseph said. He understands that. It's a performance league, and everything we do is graded and it's counted. After a string of poor performances at training camp, Lynch was ineffective in 7 series Saturday night against Minnesota, completing 6 of 11 passes for 24 yards and an interception to go with a sack. And finally, from the Dallas Cowboys, they placed guard Marcus Martin on injured reserve with a toe ailment and taken defensive tackle Malik Collins off the physically unable to perform list following offseason surgery for a broken foot. As you may remember, Malik Collins left the Nebraska team after his junior year, 2-3 years ago. Kendra?
Okay. Running from era when football was king. Cross country has more participants than football in Grant. Is this similar to what you just wrote? No? Okay. Were they looking at him, glaring at him? Bo Wood couldn't know for sure, but the first few practices last fall, the 11th grader jogged past the football coaches in his t-shirt and gym shorts and felt the eyes of judgment upon him. Wood, 6'1", 205 pounds, should have been Perkins County High School's starring fullback and defensive end. Instead, he had become a reserve on the cross-country team. I wondered what they thought of me, he said. Every school day, Wood walked by the Perkins County photos and trophies, reminders of an era before consolidation when his school was Nebraska's most dominant football powerhouse. From 75 to 1990, the Grant Plainsmen grabbed 8 state championships in Class C2. No 11-man program had ever won more titles in a shorter span. One generation later, football wasn't even the school's most popular boys' fall sport. If there were participation scoreboards at Perkins County in 2017, it would have read cross country 22, football 20. According to NSAA participation statistics, only one other Nebraska high school, Elkhorn Mount Michael, has more cross-country runners than football players. Maybe the math makes sense in a place with less gridiron tradition, but here, who could have imagined? Not in my wildest dreams, cross-country coach Paula Wurst said. For the longest time, I didn't even need an assistant coach. Wurst, who ran cross-country at Doane College 100 years ago, started coaching the team in 2003. Some years, she didn't even have enough boys to field a varsity. But the roster ballooned in the past decade as more boys chose cross-country. They discovered that football is fun to watch and it's fun to play with your friends, Wurst said. But when you're out there with the 200-pound linebackers who are trying to take your head off, then it's not so fun. She takes no glee from the football team's roster plunge. In fact, Worst often recommends that kids try football first, but the numbers keep falling, startling community members like Larry Pritchard. When Pritchard first arrived in Grant in 1964, there were 89 boys in high school, he said. More than 80 played football. If you weren't out for football, you were a student manager, said Pritchard. The Plainsman, 3-time state championship basketball coach. Football was king. The primary problem is depopulation, but fewer kids are participating in activities, too. They're still finding ways to win. Last fall, the shorthanded Perkins County football team made a run to the Class D1 quarterfinals. Plainsman cross country. They finished 8th in Class D. Their best runner was Caden Waitley's a 5'9", 130-pound junior who, according to his coach, runs as easily as most of us breathe. Waitley tried football as a freshman, too, because he loves the game. He's an Oregon fan. He just didn't like playing it. There's always those people who say cross country is just for wusses, Waitley said. I heard some of that, but it wasn't terrible. A lot of the football players are good friends. Coach Worse senses some heat from the community, especially when a potential receiver or running back joins her team. A couple of boys wanted to run, she said, but opted for football because their dads or grandpas were part of the state championship team. Sometimes cross country is the perfect fallback plan for a different reason, injury prevention. Wood suffered concussions in elementary and middle school. It's not very good that I can't remember how many, he said. I went to a neurologist and said one more and I could be a vegetable. It was scary. Cross country was more appealing than being the place kicker or fetching water bottles, so Woods switched sports. The initial shock of his football friends turned to acceptance and Woods' anxiety faded. Running sucks, Woods said, but the atmosphere is really fun. It's more like hanging out running than actually a sport that you have to stress about. Woods' teammates take pride in their outsider status, their self-imposed nickname, the Goon Squad. Whether you finished first or last, Woods said, the coach treats the runners the same. Many Perkins County runners still attend Friday night football games and root for the Plainsmen. Wood, who won bronze at 182 pounds in the Class D state wrestling tournament in February, tries to keep his distance. It just reminds me of something I can't do. Wood is looking forward to his senior year, besides the running part, he said, and strives to make varsity. It's not as easy as it sounds on a team that lost just one senior. The Plainsmen have a goal for 2018, but another piece of hardware at the front of Perkins County High School. There's still plenty of room in the trophy case, right? Oh, there better be, Wood said.
Thanks, Kendra. Well, over in before we move on here, I want to remind everyone that WellCare of Nebraska is proud to bring you today's reading of the Omaha World Herald and Lincoln Journal-Star. For more about WellCare, call today at 1-888-255-2605 or visit www.wellcare.com/Nebraska. Now back to sports. Over an ear-splitting afternoon in which most of the cheers weren't for him, Brooks Koepka got a taste of what golf feels like when Tiger Woods is in the hunt. And in his exhilarating but ultimately futile attempt to catch Koepka at the PGA Championship, Woods got a taste of what it's going to take to get back on top in the majors. Woods provided the thrills Sunday, a fist-pumping, club-slamming roller coaster ride of a final round in which he threatened from beginning to end but couldn't knock Koepka out of the lead or deny him the trophy. Koepka heard the commotion in front of him all day. You could hear a different roar like every 30 seconds, so we knew what was going on, he said. But he did what he does best at the majors. He put on a calm, collected show of precision golf to hold off Woods by 2 shots. When it was over, Woods had a warm hug and a huge smile for the guy he calls Brooksy. It's tough to beat when the guy hits it 340 down the middle, Woods says. When a guy's doing that and hitting it straight and as good a putter as he is, it's tough to beat. Koepka set the PGA Championship record with a 4-day record of 16 under 264. His best shot over a final round of 4 under 66 was a lasered 4-iron to the 16th green that landed 6 feet away and set up a birdie. That gave him a 2-shot cushion that allowed him to coast into the finish. It's a heck of a tournament. Well, It's 12 o'clock and our
It
time
is.
is up. So for Don Van,
And Kendra Karbowski,
so long, everyone. Have a great week.
keep spreading the laughter.
Thank you, Don Van.
Right back.
Okay,
Karbowski
leave that
for
open. I'm
bringing
dying.
this wonderful opportunity for us today. We're tuned to the Radio Talking Book Network in Omaha, Nebraska. We've been proudly serving our blind and visually impaired listeners for over 43 years. Radio Talking Book is brought to you with the cooperation of KIOS FM in Omaha and statewide through the facilities of NET Radio and Television. All right, my friends, it is noon, and I just want to remind you real quick that if you missed any portion of these broadcasts, you can hear them repeated tonight at 6 p.m. right here on Radio Talking Book. You can also catch our podcasts. You can go to our website at www.rtbs.org. You can download the podcasts there. You can also find us on iTunes. Just search for Radio Talking Book Service, and we will appear. And now, please, well, my tongue went out to lunch before I did. Please stay tuned for the Nebraska Life Hour coming up next right here on Radio Talking Book. Have a great afternoon, folks.
And Ryan, you wanted to talk to me? You can't hear me. Can you? Oof, oh. Oh, there's our video.
Rows of dots in the middle of the panel area. Those are the numbers which are not set up in smartphone keypad style.
I always forget we have a camera on us. I'm sitting here eating.
I don't know if anybody watches that or not.
I don't know as every broadcast goes on, though. It may not. Okay.
Well,
Who knows when our paths will cross
Yeah.
again?
if Deb wants to get back and that's Vietnam there, huh?
What?
Oh, that's in. Don't think of Vietnam looking like that.
Well, it's supposed to be a beautiful place.
Yeah. Well,
I guess Ryan wants to talk to me or something. Yes. I'm in trouble.
the what?
I said, Ryan wants to talk to me. Is this a good place to put this or should I put it out there?
I think they got it.
This is the.
He might maybe has some work for you.
Maybe. I'll ask him. I'll throw this in.
Well, I'll see you later. We'll cross again, I'm
At
sure.
some point in time, I'm sure.
Take care, Don. Have a good week.
You too.
Hopefully that'll work out when I come to that. Have a competition. It was nice to meet the boys. There were a lot of these guys going, yeah, well, I'll give you some advice. And it's like, out of a lady who was looking for it. It's like, really? So. Oh, there's this one guy that's always, he tries to act like he's the authority on comedy. And what it is he then picks and chooses who he likes to have in a show for people that don't know comedy. And is there a place to dump my comedy?
Yeah, right on the, you can just put it in that garbage can down there,
Oh, that's
on the
okay.
other side of the water.
All right.
Yeah, that's fine. It's not that much.
No. Thank you for everything. I'll go see what he needs.
Okay.
Such a day. Well, we'll see ya.
funny women.
Yes.
Free Carson, free Johnny Carson. Very funny as well.
Yeah, I remember you already.
Yeah. Our Miss Brooks, very funny show.
I thought you were mixed up. No, Joan Lockhart was totally different. They had the same. Eve Ardenna, she later was in Greece. And she is in a hysterical movie called Pandemonium.
Never heard of it.
Tommy Smothers, Eve Ardenna. It was basically a parody of like all the Friday 13th Halloween movies.
Yeah.
And they're opening the cheerleading camp. No! And Tommy Smothers plays a Canadian mountain. That's always with his horse Bob. And they're hunting these two, an escaped killer from the prison and an escaped maniac, and they call him friendship. He murders people and turns them into furniture. And so Peter Herman plays his assistant, Johnson. Johnson! It's like, what were you doing? I heard you were in her drawers. Because she was turning into furniture and he's opening her drawers. It's that bad. The whole thing. It's hysterical though. It's very funny.
It's hysterically bad.
It's hysterically bad. I like hysterically bad. That's good.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, I was just trying to think of other women that were funny, and I thought,
Oh, well, there's been a few since then, but when you think of stand-up comedy, people may not have liked her, but she broke a lot of glass ceilings, and that was Joan Rivers. She really did. She really did. She broke through the Phyllis Diller. But unfortunately, back then, women in comedy picked on their looks. So if you didn't look funny, you weren't funny.
sure.
It was pretty rare that some gorgeous woman went out there and tried to do comedy. It didn't happen. I'm actually watching a series called The History of Comedy, which surprisingly is on CNN. And they've explored all the different backgrounds from female comedy to headline comedy to bad language and so on and so forth.
Right.
But yeah, there's a few out there. Like Phyllis Diller. I mean, what I liked about Phyllis Diller was she was 38 when she started working. And she had 5 kids. She was both a lounge singer and she was a fantastic pianist.
Right.
And she also did comedy. But a lot of people don't realize she was a classical pianist.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
So now you do. Now you do. And now there's tons of stand-ups. They all vary, and it's kind of, I don't know, for a while it was like the boys club where you had to be as dirty as them to be funny. And it's like, no, I'm not going to go there.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I was really excited. I was just telling Betty that last night we won a job doing a fundraiser for the Children's Hospital. I think it's during the Children's Miracle Network time. And it's going to be at a Sam's Club. They're going to open it to the public.
Wow.
Yeah, and for $10, we don't get paid, but for $10 you get tacos and something to drink, and you get art through comedy. And we performed, there's 4 of us, we performed for an hour, we each do 12 minutes, and then when there's 12 minutes left in the hour, we all 4 get together on stools or chairs, and we do what's called Mom Time, which is what I would love for the act to be completely. But at this point, we still just do 4 segments of stand-up and then a segment of Mom Time.
Okay.
And we just did really well. We went to a place called Screamers, which is in Lincoln. I've never been there. It's a cabaret and buffet, and it was really good food. We really liked it. That was on Sunday. Sold the house out, and then on Friday we were at James Arthur Vineyard. So, and I just got another lead on another vineyard. So really, we're willing to go and drink if they want us.
Good luck.
We do have men in our audience, so
Good.
We'll see ya. Thank you.
Take care. Have a good week.
Bye.
Well, I'm gonna give it a class. I'm gonna give it to 12:30.
Okay.
Now, I picked out a bunch of articles, so he doesn't have to sit and cogitate.
Okay.
You can just start reading.
All right, cool.
Long ones and little short fillers and.
All right, cool.
So,
He has a class, I think he's
so, do you know how long it takes to go from 32nd Fort to here?
No.
I can tell you, less than 8 minutes, because I can come from 18th Street to here in 8 minutes.
Well, and I guess I can do one thing.
Well, I think the
The broadcasting is down at the fort.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes, I believe so.
So I asked him what his major was. And he was just doing the bar.
Well, that, I could be wrong, but that's what the other two were in. Well, they were taking I'm not saying they were majoring in it.
They were taking a class.
Exactly, and as a part of that class, so I don't know if everybody, in every aspect of the college, whatever is offered has to do something. But those two were in the same class, yeah, both ended up here to do their 2 other things, so. All right, he's got 20 minutes.
1 minute.
Have any interest in reading the Lincoln Journal Star? Okay. Bless you.
All right, Betty.
I'm waiting for this dumb student who is now 20 minutes late.
Hmm.